go live.
We're going live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Recovery's Facebook Live. And we come to you every Thursday from Co-op Radio. We're right in the middle of the downtown east side at Columbia and Hastings. To get into the building, we had to ask a nice gentleman to stop cooking his heroin so we can get in. So
and how'd that go for you?
You know what? He was shocked, but he was very polite.
Okay.
Yes. So we are now going to be doing our personal story. Thanks for listening. Ryan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, we're going to be going live. What are we listening to, Darren?
We're listening to Mumford and Sons.
Okay, going live.
And welcome back on Talk Recovery, Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. This is a time where we have our personal story, very inspiring story, and here we go.
Yes, we're ready to be inspiring. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good, are you?
I'm good. So, Ryan, we're having a discussion today about the word addict. Do I identify with being an addict? Do you think it's a negative or positive, or yeah?
I mean, my initial experience with recovery in the first about month of being clean, I did have a negative connotation with the word addict, but now 3 years later, I actually embrace it. And I think using the term allows me to belong to something that I didn't feel when I was in active addiction. I always searched to be a part of something, but never really felt that. But when I use the term addict, I feel like I can belong to something and it has a positive effect on me and not a negative.
Yeah, because it's it's an addict. Like, we're an addict when we're using, but really an addict in recovery is a great person to know. Like I was saying, I heard in a meeting the other day, recovery is the new religion. And I don't know where you stand on that, but this idea that people could go from full-blown addiction to using and manipulating and blaming and, or a place of hopelessness and despair to a place of, wanting to find a purpose for their life and wanting to help others and wanting to just be a good person and do the right thing. Like, it's pretty amazing.
For sure.
For sure.
I mean, I think it's important for me to understand, too, that just because I have been clean for a little while doesn't mean that, like, a relapse isn't possible. So when I identify as an addict, it means that, like, that's who I am, and I need to continue to work a program of recovery to enjoy life and have that freedom that the program has offered me.
Right, like a daily reprieve,
yeah.
You're not cured. You're not cured. Good point. So when did you come into recovery? What did your life in addiction look like? Say your last 90 days. What did that look like for you?
For a while I was a functional alcoholic, and as it came down the line and I started to understand more of the problem, I became progressively worse, and the last 90 days was like I couldn't hold down a job. A lot of lies and manipulation to hide my truth from people closest to me. A lot of just like fear, hopelessness, like exhaustion. Like, I remember I had so many different stories and lies to tell everyone in my life that I couldn't remember who I was or what I was doing that day because I had so much going on. And eventually it was the physical illness of the disease caught up to me, and it was like hospitalization, institutions, and that was kind of the end of the line, was at that point.
So you went into the hospital for exhaustion, or?
No, it was from the physical dependency on alcohol.
Okay.
So I kind of went from trying to get sober and get clean, and the physical component to that with the seizures and like the shakes and stuff like that. I looked up online and it said to continue drinking because it was too dangerous to stop, and I ended up drinking again, and I made a decision that day that I needed help, so I went to the emergency room and I told them that if they didn't help me, I was gonna end my life. And it was in that moment that like the nurses grabbed me and they put me in a bed, and I think I stayed in the hospital for around 8 days before I went to treatment.
Wow, so that's a turning point for
Yeah.
sure. Like, either help me or I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah.
Wow, and how old were you at that point?
I was 25.
Wow, so to like be in that place of hopelessness and despair at 25 years old, like, and that was with just alcohol?
There was some cocaine mixed in there, but that was usually to level out the alcohol. But alcohol was the key component for sure.
Is that unusual for a person of 25 years old to be that dependent on alcohol? I haven't heard too much about that before.
I was in Edmonton on a family vacation, and I had relapsed several days before I had gone on vacation, and my family didn't know, and I ended up consuming quite a bit of alcohol in one day, and the paramedics were called to my brother's house, and when I was in the hospital, a doctor looked at me and he said that he hadn't seen someone drink like I did at my age in a very long time, and he actually referred to it as like I reminded him as a heroin addict, except with alcohol.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was, I can't speak for other people, but I have had a lot of people say that it was unique to find that.
Mm-hmm. Usually it progresses to that point, so it's almost as though you progressed very quickly.
Yeah.
If only we could reach our goals in school that way.
Yeah. If I could put it to good, it would have been nice.
Well, you still can.
Yeah.
So, so then you come into recovery and you come into a treatment center, and in the last door.
Yeah.
And so what happens from there?
Well, I had a family member who had gone through the last door in quite a few years prior, and he introduced me to the program, and I went straight from the hospital there, and it was like getting into like almost like high school or something. There was this like community and like connection between everyone, and I remember when I got there, I was so ashamed of being hospitalized and all the demoralizing things that I did leading up to that being hospitalized. And I remember sharing, like, I had to write the last 90 days, and I went around the house and I had to get people to read it and sign off on it. And a bunch of people had the exact same story. They're like, oh, what hospital were you in? Oh, I've been to that hospital. And it was like this weird, like, brotherhood instantly. And I remember, like, feeling safe and feeling like there was, like, hope. And one of the major components that personally changed my perspective on things was at this facility, people that were alumni were allowed to come by anytime they wanted. They had keys to the facility, and this guy came by, and it was my very first day there. I'm sick and I'm tired, and this guy comes up, he's like, we're going for ice cream, and he had about 4 years clean at the time, and he shared his story with me, and it gave me hope. It was like someone that's outside living life with multiple years in recovery and enjoying his life, and he shared some information with me, and I remember that night going to bed thinking like there is future, and I hadn't felt that in a really long time. Like, I remember in addiction, it was like I kind of came to terms with like I probably won't make it to my 30s, which is a pretty depressing thing, and being in treatment for one day and having someone spend some time with me and show me that there was hope was a huge turning factor for me.
That's awesome. I love that story. I love the story of just even the fact of like, yeah, like he's off, he's living his life, but he's still coming back to help a guy on day one.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I was super confused. Everyone's like, yeah, get in his car and go for ice cream with him. And I'm like, who is this person?
I've always been told not to do that.
Yeah. But it was a turning point, and I remember when I ended up finishing at the program at the last door, that was like a key component to what I wanted to be. Is I wanted to be that person that could go by and help out the next person, and it resulted in, after being clean for about a year, I ended up working there, right? But that's what inspired me at the very beginning, is like I wanted to be the person that could show the next person there was hope.
Right, and it is that hope that keeps us going. Hope
Mm-hmm.
is very critical to recovery. And so what did your life look like in terms of your family? Like, what was your family life like before and after recovery?
So growing up, I have an older brother and an older sister, and I have a younger half brother, and it was my mom who raised the three of us, and there is alcoholism in our family. So my mom was really quick on the signs of like constantly like, hey, you should take a look at your drinking, you should take a look at this, and so like I think she was aware of it, but there was a lot of like codependency as well, as like I could do well for like 5 or 6 days, and I could get my mom back on side and convince her everything was gonna be okay and let me back in the house, and I would do it all over again, right? And we were a very like close-knit family, but my self-centeredness and the way I treated my family really pushed people away. Like I remember my sister got really sick, and she didn't want to share it with my family because my mom was so busy dealing with my chaos. And by the end of my addiction, my mom was on medical leave from work because she had to babysit me. She was driving me to meetings at 8 in the morning, and then driving me to meetings at noon, and then driving me to meetings at night, and I was going in the meetings and leaving out the back door and going to drink again, right? And so it went from being a very close family to everyone walking on eggshells because of they didn't want to say the wrong thing to me, they didn't want to set me off, and it was to the point of like just it tore us apart for sure.
And then you come into recovery. So from there you went to a family's home, your brother's home.
Yeah.
And then it got worse.
Yeah.
And then you landed in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there you go into recovery. So what does life look like today with your family?
I would say, like, I kind of share this with a lot of people, but since I've gotten clean and entered recovery, like, I honestly can't remember the last time me and my mom actually had a fight. And my mom did live in Vancouver, and when I got clean, I was around a year clean, she told me she was going to retire and move to Edmonton to be close to my brother and his kids, and that she didn't have to babysit me anymore. So I think what it allowed all of us to have, like, a healthy space. Like, me and my mom really had a codependent relationship where, like, she did a lot of things for me. Like, I was 25 years old and I didn't even do my own laundry, right? And to the point where when I was in treatment and talking to my mom, it was like, we need to learn how to have a healthy relationship that involved, like, space and not babying and stuff like that. And I think having those healthy boundaries has created an even stronger relationship.
So what kind of feedback did you get from the guys in treatment around your relationship with your mother? I know they have a saying like, there's a lot of respect for mothers, but there is that line where it's like there's a line between respecting your mother and being, a mama's boy. So
yeah, I mean, a large part of it was like a lot of people just said, like, I had to learn how to take responsibility for my life, and that was something that, like, I learned it. Like, I really truly I believe that I went into treatment as, like, a boy, and through the process of, like, figuring out who I was and working on myself and taking responsibility, I came out the other side a man, and was able to not just take from my mom, but have, like, a proper relationship where it like, I can bring something to the table, right?
Love that. That is recovery for sure. So what's next? What's the future for Ryan? What are your hopes, dreams, and goals?
Well, it was about just over a year and a half ago, I made a decision to work at the Last Door and pursue an education in addiction counseling, which I'll be completing in January. I'll be doing my practicum, and I mean, I've never had a job where I wake up and I'm happy to go to work. Like, there's, like, an ongoing joke at my work where, like, people are like, do you ever leave? Because, like, even on my days off, I find myself, like, just drawn to the energy of recovery and helping people. And so for me, it's like, in the first couple of years of my recovery, I've found purpose. I've found a passion for a career in education, and for the future, it's like, I want to do some traveling. Like, one of my favorite things is to go to some NA meetings in different places in the world. Like, I've got to go to meetings and do speaker meetings in Hawaii. I went down to California where NA was started, and I went to meetings down there. So it's just to continue living free is my main goal.
And just one last question from me is, so NA is more like Narcotics Anonymous, so like, and then there's Alcoholics Anonymous. Why are you drawn to the narcotics factor if alcohol was more your drug of choice?
I believe addiction, it's not about the substance. Like, the substance abuse is a symptom of the illness and the disease, whereas it's more based upon, like, my self-centered nature, my self-centered fear, and my behavior is what led me into it. Like, I truly believe before alcohol came into my life, like, addiction played a role, whether it was like I remember losing myself in video games. Like, there's like an alternate reality I got to escape, and when I found substances, it did that exact same thing for me. So I truly, what I like about NA is there is no distinguish between substances. Like, if I didn't get alcohol, I would find something else. Like, I've used other substances as well, and it was only when I couldn't get alcohol that I went to other substances. So I like the fact that it's an umbrella of addiction, because it's a lot more than just substance abuse.
I agree. And I just want to say, like, congratulations on, you know, going from a place in your life where you're like, basically, help me or I'm going to kill myself, to a place where you're looking towards the future, you're surrounded by community, and you're enjoying and loving your life and helping others, and couldn't ask for anything more.
Thanks.
That's awesome, Ryan. Congratulations on being in recovery. Woohoo!
I mean, here we have, you know, another personal story, their journey, what it was like, what happened. You know, there's a few billion people in the world that aren't slamming a 26er every day trying to cope because they had a feeling, right? I mean, you're not doing that today, right? Whereas, you know, 4 years ago, you were consuming quite a bit of alcohol, probably telling yourself to deal with feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like to cope with something, or, you know, because you can't seem to figure out life, or whatever it is going through a, you know, alcohol saturated 24-year-old mind, right? So, I mean, that's the truth. There's the reality. There's the proof. You never had to do that, really, right? So what is it that, you know, in your definition of recovery, like, what are you doing instead, more simply put? What are you doing instead of drowning yourself with alcohol?
Connecting with people, I would say, is the number one thing. If I learned anything through going through treatment and participating in a 12-step fellowship, is like they just hammer home connecting with others, right? Like it says it at every meeting you go to, and that was the one thing I learned at the last door, if anything, was how to create friendships. Mm-hmm. And not just like, yo, what's up, how you doing, like, you know what I mean? Like talking about real things, like not feeling a part of, or low self-esteem, or like I don't feel worth it, like those kind of issues. And I think that was the most important piece.
Yeah.
And as I continued my journey, like I have friends that I met when I was in treatment that I still talk to probably twice a week, 3 times a week, even though they don't live in BC. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's just that key piece of not just being the I'm fine guy, because I was like that for a really long time, and just put the smile on and say I'm fine, where truly it was like feeling not a part of, feeling like I'm not good enough, and that I'm not going to succeed in life. But being able to share that, like, and being vulnerable is, I think, made me a more well-rounded person.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of says a lot, because if you believe that you were born an addict, or whatever some of the philosophies out there are, it would still suggest that somewhere along the line, your belief was that you're alone, there's nobody that understands me, I can't talk to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of would have to be what's going on if you're just continually you know, using drugs and alcohol to deal with stuff. I mean, now knowing what the solution is, right? So, you know, in your field now, in at work, how do you get it across to, you know, to people that's all it is? It's really that simple.
I mean, something that I tell a lot of people is, like, especially in treatment, if you can leave here with 4 to 5 good friends that you feel like you can tell them whatever's going on through your head, like you're doing something right. Right on. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed from being a sponsor and from working with people in a treatment facility environment is, once that individual starts to care more about the person next to them, you see recovery working. Because for a long time it was always about, like, how are my actions going to affect me? Like, how am I going to be conceived on the other end of this, when it's like, how are other people going to feel? And when I start noticing people, like, oh, I'm really worried about this guy, like he's not doing this, he's look like he's going down the wrong way. It's like you see recovery working in their life because they care more about someone else than their own problems. And for me, like I got so consumed with my own fear and problems that I became the biggest problem.
Well, thanks again, Ryan, for coming in today and sharing your story. Absolutely amazing. You know, think about it. Count on your finger and your hands right now if you got that many people in your life that you could go to, talk to, hang out with, share what's going on in your life. Then, I mean, you're already in the solution. And if there's 3 people in your life that you can't stand, that you don't like, quit talking. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters are the ones that you connect with. Right out of Ryan's mouth. Thanks for coming in today. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you to our first guest, Robert Moore. Check out his book. Make contact on our Facebook page to find out all the information you need to know. And stay tuned for World Poetry Cafe coming up at 1 o'clock. And we're going to leave the show with a little Michael Franti. This is Gloria.
When many little people, many little